Well, in a departure from the usual diplomatic formalities, today the visiting British Foreign Secretary William Hague toured a flood-ravaged suburb of Brisbane, sharing sausages and a chat with victims and volunteers. He told them that Britons were watching events closely and raising money for the needy, and that flood forecast and recovery experts from his country had also offered help. Well, I caught up with William Hague in Brisbane. William Hague, we're in Brisbane right now. You've just seen some of the Brisbane flood damage and met some of those who have had to contend with it. What are your initial impressions?
Oh, several impressions, really. One is the astonishing clean-up. They've really done a terrific job. I know that there's been a human army in there working hard, mainly of voluntary people. Well, they've done a terrific job. And I know there's a lot more work to do upstream, you know, and that maybe I saw one of the bits that had been cleaned up first, but nevertheless people have really applied themselves to that in a very admirable way. Also, the way all the neighbours had helped each other. You know, nearly everybody I spoke to, they'd gone to stay with family or friends. One lady had 26 children in her house at one stage. That extraordinary community spirit had really come to the fore in all of this, and I think that is admired the world. I want the people there to know it is admired the world over, actually, how they have coped with this appalling situation, and people in Britain have been following it very, very closely indeed and been deeply moved by it.
What brings you principally here is reinvigorating, to use your word, the Australian-UK relationship. And soon after becoming Foreign Secretary, you said you wanted Britain's foreign policy to be more geared to the country's national interest. How do relations with Australia fit into that approach?
Well, in many different ways. Obviously, commercially, we do a lot of business and we have so many investments between Britain and Australia, but we can have a lot more, and I'm spending a good deal of my time here with people doing business in both directions. Boosting trade and business around the world is a top priority of our government and of the Foreign Office. And so that is part of it. But also, we were talking at yesterday's meeting about working more closely together on cyber security, on counter-terrorism. In an age where distance matters so much less, Britain and Australia need to do more together on issues like that, and I'm pleased to say we are going to do a great deal more together on those sorts of issues.
More broadly, what role do you see the Commonwealth playing in Britain maintaining, or indeed regaining, a strong position in this region? And furthermore, I'm putting it bluntly, what's in it for Australia to support that, given that we have a strong economy and we can negotiate directly with our regional neighbours?
There's a lot in it for both of us, actually, for Britain and Australia and all the members of the Commonwealth. This is now a networked world. That is how the world is working, from Facebook to business relationships to the way nations are working together, shifting groups of relationships and alliances. And in the middle of all that, what do we have? We have a remarkable network, the Commonwealth, that you couldn't invent if you tried, because it is so extensive and remarkable. 54 nations spanning so most of the continents of the world, nearly a quarter of the world's population, and they're in the network of the Commonwealth. Well, that means you ought to be able to do quite a lot with that network, and we haven't used it for enough things in recent times. So I hope the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Perth will be an important turning point in that. And I know in the Australian government there's a similar determination to make more use of the Commonwealth in the future for the benefit of all of us.
How do you think major players and emerging powers in this region, notably China and India, will respond to your attempts to reinvigorate that presence of the Commonwealth, given that they'd be wondering what Britain's intent is in this region?
India is part of the Commonwealth.
Of course.
That is the great beauty of the Commonwealth. There are old and new relationships all bound together in it. There's nothing aggressive about the Commonwealth in any way. The Commonwealth is about certain shared values again. It's certainly about democratic governance. There is more that the Commonwealth can do to work together on climate change, as it has done to some extent, promoting good governance among its members. So the Commonwealth is not a threat in any way to a country like China, but it is an opportunity for countries like India, Australia, Britain, and then the very large number of very small states that are in the Commonwealth to work together for the good of the whole world.
One key issue for both our nations is Afghanistan. Our political leaders have been saying, when asked about deadlines and timelines, have said in effect, or variations of, Australia will have a presence there until the job is done. How would you define what what is meant by getting the job done or until the job is done, and therefore how long do you envisage Britain will have a presence in one form or another in Afghanistan?
Well, we're all agreed, and we all agreed at the Lisbon summit in November, that by 2014 the Afghan security forces should be able to lead and sustain their own operations in all parts of Afghanistan. And they are on track to do that. They are building up even slightly ahead of the numbers anticipated at the moment. They're already one of the largest armies in the world. Now they need not only to keep increasing in size, but they need all the skills of leadership and engineering and logistics that go with an army that can really operate on its own. Well, there's 3 more years to bring that about. And at that point, of course, that's an important change. And on the strength of that happening by 2014, we say in Britain that by 2015, we will not have troops engaged in combat operations there or in anything like the numbers they are today. We will be committed for the long term to supporting and helping Afghanistan in many ways, economically and diplomatically and in different roles. But that's how we look at the troop deployment in Afghanistan. Both Britain and Afghanistan play both Britain and Australia play a big part in what is happening in Afghanistan, a crucial part in what's happening there, and we are determined to succeed, both of us.
With that old Afghan saying that you may have the watches, but we have the time, even with that deadline there, does that play into, or with that deadline there, does that play into the Taliban's hands or those that may not agree with what is trying to be achieved there in Afghanistan?
No, I don't think it does that. I think it would if we said, well, in 1 or 2 months' time, we are all going to be leaving. But no, I don't think putting it how we've put it has that effect, because this is only happening after the Afghan forces are able to perform on their own. And what we're doing all the time now, every day in Afghanistan, is partnering with the Afghan forces. So in an increasing number of operations, it's the Afghans who are leading those operations. So no one is saying that the Taliban are going to be left facing no opposition. They are going to end up facing, if they are still fighting at that point, a highly trained and very large set of armed forces of the sovereign nation of Afghanistan. And what's our objective there? It is for Afghans to be able to look after their own affairs without presenting a danger to the world. It isn't to have a long-term military presence of our own there.
William Hague, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And that's the program for tonight. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow, but for now, good night.